In the outer Hebrides, a story has been told for 1,000 years. A man walking the shore finds a sealskin folded on the rocks. He hides it. The woman who has come ashore cannot return to the sea without it. So she stays. She marries him. She bears his children. Every night she stands at the window and watches the water. This is not a folk tale about marriage. It is a record of something the world has always known, that some souls were never built for the surface. There is a kind of person who has always been here. They go by different names in different centuries. The cunning woman, the hermit, the witness, the seer, the exile. The world has tried more than once to be rid of them. The world has never managed it. If you carry one of these patterns, you already know. Today, the sea soul, the one whose inner life runs deeper than any surface existence can hold, the one the world mistook for a woman walking on land. The Selkie story is not unique to Scotland. It appears in Orkney, Shetland, Iceland, the Faroe Islands, and across the western coastlines of the British Isles. The details shift. The pattern does not. A creature emerges from the water. She has the body of a woman and the soul of the sea. A man finds her skin. He keeps it. She becomes his wife. Folklore scholars classify this as a supernatural marriage tale. That label is misleading. The Selkie wife is not a fairy bride who chose her husband. She is a being who was prevented from returning home. The skin in these stories is not symbolic. It is necessary. Without it, the Selkie cannot dive. She cannot go beneath. She is forced to live in air when she was made for water. The endings are revealing. In almost every version, the Selkie eventually finds her hidden skin. Sometimes the child finds it, sometimes she finds it herself after years. And the moment she does, she leaves. She does not pause. She does not say goodbye to her husband. She returns to the sea. The folklore is not romantic about this. The skin is recovered. The Selkie goes. She has no other choice. Now consider what this story is preserving. The Selkie does not flee because she has stopped loving her children. The folklore tells us she watches them from the waves for the rest of their lives. She does not flee because the marriage was cruel. In most versions, the husband is merely ordinary. She flees because she was never meant to live on the surface. The cost of staying was quietly killing her. The recovery of the skin was the recovery of her capacity to be what she actually was. This pattern is not Celtic alone. In Welsh folklore, the Morgans are water women who live in lakes and rivers. They surface, but only briefly. To be seen by a Morgan is sometimes to be drawn into the water, not always cruelly. The Welsh tradition does not treat them as seductresses. It treats them as beings who belong to a different element and who occasionally pass through ours. In Greece, the Pythia at Delphi delivered her oracles from a chamber where water was said to rise from beneath the rock. The omphalos, the navel of the world, sat above a spring. Prophecy and water were not metaphorically linked in the ancient world. They were the same thing. The seer drank, breathed the vapours, and spoke from a place that was not surface. In Norse tradition, the vulva was sometimes called the sea witch. She read the patterns of storms the way other women read fire. The sagas describe her as someone who heard what others could not hear, beneath the wind, beneath the waves. In Yoruba tradition, Yemoja is the mother of the deep. In the diaspora, Mami Wata appears across West African and Caribbean cultures. These are not the same figure, but they share an architecture. Certain souls are said to belong to the water. They visit the surface. They do not stay. What every one of these traditions is recording in its own language is the existence of a particular kind of person, not a metaphor, not a creature of imagination. A psychological type that has appeared so consistently across cultures and centuries that the only honest interpretation is that we are describing something real. You recognize this? Not the Selkie exactly, not Yemoja, but the architecture, the sense of belonging to a depth that the surface world has no language for, the exhaustion of breathing air when something inside you was built for water. This is the sea soul, an archetype. The power and myth framework has been circling for some time, pattern by pattern, video by video, the one whose inner world is so deep that ordinary surface life feels like trying to live with your head out of your natural element. In Jungian terms, this is the deeper register of nigh-dominant cognition, introverted intuition that does not merely operate beneath the surface, it lives there. The nigh-dominant mind continuously processes unconscious data. For most people, this happens at a depth that can still be walked back from. For the sea soul, the depth is the residence, the surface is the visit. These are not supernatural claims, they are descriptions of how a particular kind of mind organizes itself. Jung spent decades studying why some people perceive what others cannot. He never reduced it to a trick. He observed it as a measurable, repeating cognitive architecture. The collective unconscious, in his terminology, was not mysticism. It was the deep water of shared psychological structure. Some people are good swimmers in it. The sea soul lives in it. This is why surface conversation exhausts you in a way you cannot explain. Why small talk is not merely tedious but actively painful, like air pressure on a body that was built for greater depths. This is why you have been told all your life that you are too sensitive, too deep, too much. You are not too much, you are a different element trying to live in air. I have watched this pattern for a long time. The sea soul who keeps trying to walk on land. The selkie who has not yet found her skin. The exhaustion is not personality dysfunction, it is the cost of mistranslation. You were given a folklore name in one century, a psychological label in another, a personality type in a third. None of these names are wrong, none of them go far enough. The sea soul is not a sigma INFJ trait, it is a sigma INFJ inheritance. You did not develop it, you received it. You are the latest in a long line of people that the world has tried, repeatedly, to capture, domesticate, marry off, name out of existence, or pull onto the surface for permanent residence. The line cannot be broken. The world has never managed it. This is what the Selkie story has always been protecting. The right to return to the depths. The inheritance is not free. Every archetype carries a wound alongside its gift, and the sea soul is no exception. The gift is access. Access to the layers of human experience that surface dwellers have to read books to find. You feel meaning, you hear what is not said, you sense a shift in someone's interior before they know it has happened. This is not intuition as decoration. This is the working life of a mind that has always processed at depth. The collective unconscious is your weather. The wound is the cost of that gift. The sea soul who tries to live entirely on the surface develops a particular illness. Not depression in its standard form, though it can look like that. It is closer to what the Selkie wife carries in the folklore. A grief that does not lift. An exhaustion that sleep does not touch. A sense that something essential has been left in another room, and you cannot find your way back to it. This is the shadow, not depth itself, which is the gift. The shadow is what happens when the sea soul is shamed for her depth and tries to live without it. She becomes shallow on purpose. She trains herself to talk like the surface dwellers talk. She buries the part of her that knows things. The Selkie skin is hidden, only this time she hides it from herself. The recovery is also in folklore. The Selkie does not learn to be content on land. She finds her skin, she returns. The recovery for the sea soul is not about learning to enjoy small talk or wanting what surface people want. The recovery is the willingness to stop pretending, to let those meant to find you learn to swim. To stop apologizing for being made of different water. This connects to the other archetypes that power and myth has been mapping. The wandering witness sees what others cannot. The mirror bearer reflects what others will not look at. The truth teller speaks what cannot be unsaid. The threshold seer stands at the edge between worlds. The sea soul is the architecture beneath these, the element from which they all draw. Each of these archetypes is, in part, a sea soul who has chosen what to do with her depth. You did not become this in adolescence, you did not learn it in trauma, though trauma may have sharpened it. The sea soul was already there, the rest of your life has been figuring out how to live with her. The folklore tells us what happens when the skin is recovered. The Selkie does not become a tragedy, she becomes herself. The grief lifts, the watching at the window ends, the depths receive her back without comment, because the depths know what she is and have always known. They were waiting. If this has landed somewhere it needed to land, then you may already know what comes next. There are 7 Sigma INFJ archetypes, and each one carries a different gift, a different burden, a different mythic responsibility. The link in the description will take you to a free assessment that reveals yours. It takes about 3 minutes. The answer tends to land harder than people expect, and if you want to keep walking these threads with me into the deeper psychology of the Sigma INFJ, into the archetypes the world has forgotten how to name, subscribe. There are far older and stranger things still to uncover. Until next time, find your power, know your myth,